Hello and welcome to the channel. I am here for a discussion video for you guys. Now for this discussion video, I want to talk about something that's kind of been on my mind for a while now because, well, I've been seeing it with a lot of people and I figured why not talk about it now. So for this video, I want to talk about people that are only into a handful of bands and people that won't give certain bands a chance. Now, not giving certain bands a chance is, for reasons that are stupid and for reasons that are, I think, also just kind of like a misunderstanding. Some people that just don't understand. So yeah, this is definitely something I do want to talk about because I have been seeing it a lot with people. And these are people that, claim to be music fans too, which is something that's very ridiculous, I think. So yeah, that's all stuff we'll get into. Now, one of the communities of the rock and metal spectrum I see that, won't step outside their comfort zones and that are only into a handful of bands are, well, you guessed it, the modern rock community. That's right. Now, this is coming from a guy who does like modern rock myself. Of course, bands like Breaking Benjamin, Shinedown, 3 Days Grace, and Red. So I do like modern rock, so don't think, I'm trashing on modern rock here, But I would say it is an overhyped, style of rock, I think. Especially since, it's kind of, early 2010s, you know what I'm saying? But still, not a bad genre. But it is something that I've seen a lot with this crowd, especially since, it seems like a lot of this community won't check out a band unless they're modern hard rock, or unless, they sound like something that they're already into, and maybe they won't explore metal. Maybe the only metal they're willing to explore is like metalcore or something. And man, they're missing out on a lot of other metal out there. And this isn't just for the modern hard rock community, so don't just think, I'm just only gonna, call out that crowd. No, this actually goes for a lot of people in metal as well, especially people that are, only into melodic death metal. I know some people that won't check out a band if they're not melodic death metal, or if they're not extreme metal, they won't check them out. They won't give them a chance. It's mainly those metal elitists out there that, are, really big into black metal and death metal and stuff, and they hate anything with clean singing in it, despite the fact that metal started out with clean singing. I mean, it just doesn't add up to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a little silly. So obviously, yeah, there are really dumb reasons why some people won't give certain bands a chance. And, the whole thing, with these groups not getting into different bands and only sticking with the bands that they're already familiar with, I don't know if it's just, a nostalgia thing, like maybe the nostalgia has just really got them good. I don't know, I personally don't know how you guys do it. Now, like I said in previous videos, there's nothing wrong with nostalgia, like having nostalgia for bands that you enjoy or, you enjoyed, when you were younger and stuff. I'm that way with several bands myself. But I don't let nostalgia keep me from checking out certain bands. That's something that I have done a lot before. One incident that I can think of is whenever Demon Hunter was coming out with their album Outlive, and that was in 2017. And I had a really close mind that year whenever Outlive came out by Demon Hunter, because I wanted nothing more than that album to come out, and I was like, just make way for Demon Hunter. Everything else can wait, and that was not the right mindset to have. And because of that, I missed out on a lot of great bands. And that's why, I didn't get into many bands in 2017, because I was like really binging on Demon Hunter, like constantly. You know what I'm saying? Now, and I can't say the same happened, when their latest albums came out, War and Peace, because, well, obviously I've opened up my mind a little bit since then, I'm not like, well, make way for this band, And I feel like that a lot of people are like that. I know a lot of people that are, well, you guessed it again, Breaking Benjamin. Yep. There's definitely a lot of people that are this way with Breaking Benjamin. Now, here's the thing. I like Breaking Benjamin. You guys know that I am a fan of them. They were one of the first bands that I've gotten into. But I also got to be honest that Breaking Benjamin's fan base is definitely one of the worst fan bases in the rock and metal world. And one of the reasons being is just the fact that the fans worship the ground that this band walks on. I have no idea why. And they think that, Breaking Benjamin is like the best thing that's ever happened to music. I don't see it. Now, maybe if I was still 15 years old, I could see it. But I'm not 15 years old anymore, obviously. So I don't see it these days, I prefer music nowadays that has a little more complexity to it. Music that actually sounds a little interesting, sounds a little different, And that's why I don't understand these people that say, Breaking Benjamin's the greatest thing that's ever happened to music. Now, I understand that there is a matter of taste involved. But man, people really like to worship this band to no end. And I just don't see it. Especially since this band doesn't even have that many albums either. It's not like they're like a super legendary band like Rush or Led Zeppelin or something, And I think the problem with a lot of Breaking Benjamin fans, and I feel like that's really the fan base that this does apply to the most, as far as a band goes. Now, I know I said before that it mostly does apply to the modern rock community, but it does apply, with a lot of Breaking Benjamin fans, because a lot of people that, are, super hardcore Breaking Benjamin fans call themselves music fans, and they may like Breaking Benjamin and maybe a few other bands. Like I said, about them only liking a handful of bands. Maybe they also like bands like Red and Starset and 3 Days Grace and Shinedown, Skillet, Seether, the list goes on. They may also like, a group of bands like those. But if we're honest here, at the end of the day, Breaking Benjamin is really all that matters to these people. Like, those other bands that I mentioned, it seems like they're only substitute bands. And I feel like that's what a lot of people that only are into a handful of bands have a bad tendency of doing, is having just substitute bands in their library. Like, just only listen to them when they're sick of their favorite band. You know what I'm saying? So, that is definitely something that I see. Some bands come to mind with that I would consider substitute bands are Seether. Seether, you'll never see people say that Seether is the best band of all time. They're just a band just to listen to, just to pass on time or something. If they're tired of listening to their favorite bands over and over, they'll go listen to Seether. It's pretty much how it is. I know a lot of modern rockers won't admit that, but that's just how it is. It's obvious, and you want to know how I know so much about the modern rock community? It's because I used to be one of them. I used to be one of those closed-minded modern rockers who would only, stick with a few bands and have substitute bands involved. So that's how I know how the modern rock community works. Now, I understand that that isn't the case for all of them. There's some of them that are actually very open-minded, If, some people say that modern rock is their favorite, type of rock, but they're also, exploring, different styles of rock and heavy metal, I see no issue with that, keep doing your thing. But I'm just talking about the crowd that, won't step outside their comfort zones, maybe, like I said, either due to nostalgia, or they won't check out a band or get into a band if they don't sound like what they're already listening to. You know what I'm saying? For example, let's say someone recommends Led Zeppelin to someone who's a fan of Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace and just bands of that variety. Of course, they might have like a reaction, well, Led Zeppelin's boring, that's a dad rock band, or, they don't sound like Breaking Benjamin or 3 Days Grace, so yeah, definitely not up my alley. Nope. And I think this goes into my next topic, and that's that there's a certain mindset that has to be involved when you're going into certain bands. I feel like the reason that a lot of people are being ignorant towards a lot of bands is because of the mindset that they're going in with certain bands. Let's say, a modern rock person, is checking out Led Zeppelin, which, by the way, I think classic rock is an essential if you call yourself a rocker. I mean, I hate to say it, that's just how it is, though. But let's say they are. Let's say they are, checking out, bands in classic rock. Maybe, they're, giving classic rock a try. And they're, bored. They say they don't like them because, they don't sound edgy enough. They don't sound cool enough. Or, they think that they're lame, or, they're, just outdated generic dad rock or whatever. The list goes on. The list really does go on. They'll have their complaints. And it's because of the fact that those bands don't sound like those bands. But like I said before, these bands like Led Zeppelin are not supposed to sound like modern rock bands. Of course they're going to sound different, And I do have to say this as well. If you are really expecting every band that you check out to sound similar to the bands that you're already into, then where's the diversity? That's where I gotta, that's what I gotta ask you, is where's the diversity in that? And these are people that claim to, be diverse. These are people that claim to be true music fans, true rockers, true, whatever they claim to be. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, these, older bands are not supposed to sound like your favorite modern rock bands. But you have to go into them with a specific mindset. And you can't say that, good talent when you hear it, when you say that these bands are boring, that they're just generic dad rock. You know what I'm saying? Don't claim you know talent, because especially since there was more talent in the past, okay? Like it or not, there was more talent in the past, as I've stated in another video before. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of ignorance that's being involved here. And once again, it's not just with the modern hard rock crowd either. This also goes for people that are, only into certain subgenres of metal, like melodeath or, black metal or something. And there's certain people that won't check out certain metal bands that claim to be metalheads, that, won't get into a band if it has singing in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe they won't check out older styles of metal like Iron Maiden or Queensryche because of the fact there's no death metal growls or anything in their music. But again, they're not supposed to have that particular vocal style in their music. You have to go into certain bands with a specific mindset, and that's what a lot of people are failing to do, I feel like. There's a lot of people that are expecting that same vibe that they get with a lot of the stuff that they're already into. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're expecting to hear the same things that they hear in the bands that they're already into with these bands that they're, going to check out. And it's important to take recommendations, I feel like, because one of the good things that I've experienced, at least with having a YouTube channel, doing what I do, talk about music, is people have recommended to me a lot of great bands. And that's the thing. You don't know what you're missing out on. If a band's being recommended to you, check them out. You just never know. They might even become your favorite band of all time. Who knows? And again, if it's a nostalgia thing, that's your loss. Again, I can't imagine, not getting into a new band ever, never again. That's just really silly to me. If I were to only stick with bands that I only had nostalgic feelings for, that would mean that the last band I ever got into was Demon Hunter, and that was like 2014. I can't imagine not getting into a new band since then. That would drive me insane. So I don't know how you guys are doing it. I really don't. But yeah, it's just a little silly to me. There's definitely a lot of people that really need to step outside their comfort zones, I feel like. And don't claim that you know talent when you say that, there's no talent in bands like Led Zeppelin or Rush, or, even in classic metal like Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't add up to me. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, too, you got to go into certain bands, like I said, with the right mindset. And the right mindset will help you. Because I know I've, had this comment before from someone who said that, well, what's the point in getting into a band if you're not even, going to like their music? But, I've said this several times. It's about the mindset that you go into with these bands. Think about how these bands impacted your favorite bands today. For you modern rockers, think about some of the bands that influenced Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace. Now, yes, I know that Tool is one of Breaking Benjamin's influences, but who do you think influenced Tool? Why don't we go back? How about you think about, these older bands like Rush and Led Zeppelin and even the band Yes. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm not saying that, you have to, track the influence all the way down to the Dark Ages. That's not what I'm saying, But there should definitely be some appreciation shown to the, the bands even just from a few decades ago. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely something to keep in mind. And, like I said, if you're getting into not getting into bands and not taking recommendations for stupid reasons, like the fact that they don't have screaming in the metal music that they're checking out, and they won't get into them because there's no screaming, or it has raw production or something, that's a little silly. Now I understand raw production isn't the easiest to digest, but it is something that I feel like a lot of people can, for the most part, get past. So yeah, definitely take recommendations, and don't just stick to just a few bands either. No matter where you're at, whether you're into rock or metal, and if you are only into a few bands and that's all you're comfortable with, then maybe music is just not for you. Just try considering that as well. Maybe if you think, well, if I'm only into a few bands, then there's obviously a problem here. That means maybe I'm just not into music. So I would not call yourself, a music fan if all you're into is like 5 bands. You know what I'm saying? That just doesn't make sense to me. And just consider that maybe music isn't just for you, and that's fine. That's not like a diss on anyone that, only likes a few bands. It's just reality. It just means that, you're just not heavily into it. And that's okay. Just find something that you are heavily into. But if you are open to check out different bands, there's always room for that. Now, of course, there's bands that I do wish I would have gotten into sooner rather than later. Some bands that come to mind are Van Halen and Yes. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that will be on the never side, opposed to the late side. And that's not where you want to be with some bands. So definitely don't pass up recommendations, because you don't know. You're going to maybe check out that band in the near future and say, why didn't I get into this sooner? Why didn't I take that person's recommendation? Because you just never know what you're missing out on. I know from experience. Like I said, take this from a guy who used to only listen to modern rock. You just don't know what's out there. And also take this from a guy who's really had a severe ignorance towards, older styles of rock and heavy metal, especially, back when I was a teenager. But you guys get the idea. Taking recommendations is definitely important. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with the majority that I said in this video? I understand not everyone would agree, especially if you are in this category, of course, but I just hope that you keep all this in mind. This is not, a video to, necessarily diss on anyone or anything like that. I just hope that this video helps certain people try out different bands and actually take some recommendations from people, because the ignorance is real. But either way, let me know your thoughts. So with that being said, thanks for watching, have a nice day, and take care.